Hello, everybody, and thank you for listening in to our live broadcast on a Sunday here at Autistic Radio. Shortly, of course, you have your programme, Harry's Facebook page, and we'll be commenting on the curated feed that he has there, bringing some of our different angles as individuals to the posts and stories that he shares. It's really an extension of that, bringing our own experiences and angles to things, that forms our work with the professional community. Autistic Radio has a lot of facets to it. Partly it's a group of hobbyists, partly it's a self-help group, partly it's a online resource to network with other people. And the aspect that we're working with at the moment is to amplify the autistic experience and how it is perceived by some very specific professionals. It's a co-production with the controversial profession of positive behavioural support. It's really early stages, and I know that a lot of autistic people find the concept that we would be cooperating and collaborating with a group of people whose basic history comes from the science of behaviourism, and we know how behaviourism has been applied in all kinds of difficult ways and difficult circumstances. So there's the association with that for definite. I feel, and I know, speaking to the team here at Autistic Radio and the charity Autistic Association, that there is a consensus amongst us that having the conversation is the key, and opening channels of communication is beneficial. So it's almost like, how can we complain that we are misunderstood if we don't take every opportunity to explain ourselves? So, if there's somebody out there who has a real interest in expressing their experience of PBS or ABA, or anything that they feel has an element of behavioural science within it as a support, we would love to hear from you and put your input into this project. We have to change things, and we have to cooperate in some respects in order to change things. So if your experience has been negative or traumatizing, that would be something that would act as a resource to teach. And if we can help you to express that or get that heard, we would feel as though we were doing what we're set up to do here. So, however your experience has made you feel, we will do our best to represent what you wish to say as authentically as possible. There are no trick questions. It's just a way of getting your voice out there through Autistic Radio. And now, something hopefully more wide-ranging. Harry, please take away the microphone and take us into the world of the 555 Live, Harry's Facebook.
Thanks, Jules. Good evening, everyone. This is Harry's Facebook for Sunday, the 10th of August 2025. This is where we discuss the Facebook posts that have been shared on the Autistic Radio page and the topics based on them. And the first post is from Swan Autism Scotland, who are an autistic-led charity run by and for autistic women and non-binary people since 2012. And what they're shared is they're promoting an event which is happening tomorrow, which is a virtual body doubling session on Swan Conversations / on Instagram from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. UK time. And they're responding to the Scottish Parliament's call for evidence on autism and ADHD pathways. And what that is the Scottish Parliament is carrying out an important inquiry into autism and ADHD pathways and support, and has launched a call for evidence to seek the experiences of autistic, ADHD and AUDHD people, their families and relevant organisations. We think it's important to take part in this consultation so that the experience of neurodivergent people are foremost in informing both the inquiry itself and plans for the way forward. We wanted to offer a relaxed online space for anyone who wants or needs support to start and or finish the response. Finish the news section on our website to find out more about what responding to the call for evidence involves. So how will the body doubling session work? Our virtual body doubling session will be organised into 20-minute blocks of time where you can work on your response, and 10-minute blocks of time where you can take a break, check in, or chat about something completely different. This isn't an online session on Zoom. Instead, join in through Swan's Instagram stories or via our posts on the Swans Conversation group on Facebook. We'll be posting to Swan Conversation and Instagram stories at the start of each block of work time and each block of break time. Members of the Swan team will be online to chat over support and will be logging off when the body doubling session ends at 7:30 p.m. You can join us for the whole time or drop in at any time between 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. UK time. And what is Swan Conversations? Swan Conversation is a Facebook group for all autistic, diagnosed or self-identified women and non-binary people who are over 18 and living in Scotland. To join, you search Swan Conversation in the Facebook search box to find the group and click Join Group. You will be asked a few membership questions before you join. This is to ensure we keep the closed group a safe space for autistic women and non-binary people in Scotland. Your request to join will then be sent to us for approval. Please note, if you do not complete in the joining questions, we will be unable to approve your request to join the group, so please remember to respond. We suggest joining the group a few days before the 11th of August, so we have time to process your request. What's people's thoughts on this post?
Wow, it's really impressive, isn't it? This is autistic people creating an organisation over that period of time, and it's got to the stage where it is not only involving itself in the politics, but it's providing a support and service for the autistic population using this body doubling through social media, through Instagram, where it's appropriate, where it's accessible to people. It's really a wonderful looking setup they have there. The other thing I noticed was that they're very open in the way that they say you drop in, don't overdo things, don't feel as though you have to. So that openness that appears to be in that post is something like we have here at Autistic Radio with the 444 drop-in, and I think that's an essential thing that they're getting right there.
I think it's good they're doing this, but to get onto it just feels so complex with me. And there's 20 minutes and 10 minutes and log in this and join that, and that just feels some people may not be able to deal with the complexity of that.
Yeah, I understand that. Some people may feel that it's not for them, but I totally understand why they do it the way they do it, because it's a safe space. So they're trying to keep it secure and safe for people and not just let anybody in. Because I've been to different, things that are pretty open, not autistic led, but just different things, talking about different topics. And there's always people that come in to stir, not necessarily to say something out of order, but just basically to stir things up. And you want to prevent that happening to these sort of groups or these sort of sessions, because it's quite intense enough being online if you feel that it's a bit too open, and that actually itself might put a lot of people off. So I get your point, but I totally agree with the setup that the Spawn has, because we've got to keep safe. And even if you do have a place where it's welcoming, you've got to have that sort of kind of security about it as well, so you feel that it's worth going to and you're not in any kind of danger. It may sound extreme, but there has been examples in the past, especially online, where these sort of things, these sort of mechanisms need to take place.
What's people's feelings about this consultation, though? I have to admit I didn't bother with it. I thought there's going to be enough voices out there. There's so many people now that want to speak up on behalf of autistic people. I didn't feel it was likely that I had a different angle in the cacophony. What did other people make their will known?
I certainly didn't. Not because of lack of interest or anything. It's just that I feel I'm just being consulted consulted into the ground by all different things, whether it be the Scottish Government, whether it be the local council, whether it be the local NHS board, or even other organisations, just like consultation, we want your views. And it just sometimes feels a bit overburdening and overbearing. But take on what you're saying as well, like there will be a lot of voices out there, and organisations like Swan will take the opportunity to have a platform for people to take part in a safe and comfortable environment. Because a lot of these things are quite dry, sometimes they can be quite intense, especially if you're talking about your own experiences. So I haven't been involved, although I have seen updates, and it's good to know that these things are happening, even though I'm always quite cynical and where these things lead to. But then again, if people are getting involved and it's the right people, maybe there'll be some positives in it. It'd be worthwhile.
There's a comment in the text saying most consultations are rigged to get the answer they want. I don't know. I think sometimes they're going to get something through, but yeah, it does seem like a clunky situation.
The next post is from Flourish Autism Consultancy and Training, which is an education website. And they've shared the following. I am honoured to officially launch Flourish Autism Consultancy and Training. Flourish has been quietly taking shape for many years, born from a vision rooted in lived experience, shaped by professional practice, and sustained by a deep commitment to equity, inclusion, and community. What began as a deeply personal intention has evolved into a professional platform for change, grounded in a neuro-affirmative values and the belief that every autistic individual deserves to be understood, respected, and supported to flourish. Flourish is more than a consultancy. It is a community, a space where autistic-led practice, reflective training, and family partnership come together to cultivate lasting, meaningful change. I am proud to stand alongside an exceptional team who share this vision and bring extraordinary depth to our work. Amanda McGuinness, Director of Autism Advocacy and Professional Practice. Gail Kenny, Head of Community Support Services. Adrian Keeley, Community Support Officer. Together we bring a shared commitment to delivering evidence-informed, lived experience-led support for families, professionals and organisations across the lifespan. This is only the beginning. As we continue to grow, we look forward to welcoming additional team members who will expand our capacity and deepen our impact. We are excited to walk the next chapter with you, centred in connection, guided by purpose, and committed to shaping a society where autistic individuals across the lifespan, together with their families, are supported to truly flourish. Bernie Smith, Flourish Founder and Executive Director. What's people's thoughts? There is some support and information included. The reason I shared this was it was something quite positive sounding, amongst a lot of the stuff that's been shared. It's been quite intense. And it's just a moment that's been shared, and it sounds very inclusive, but also sounds quite interesting to discuss. And sometimes I'm unsure what consultancy and training is, but I believe there would be an opportunity for people to be treated a lot better than they have been before, autistic people. having a conversation and talking and being involved in a conversation rather than being talked to or talked at or practiced on and analysed. This just seems a better way forward, and it's a more positive conversation. What's other thoughts?
Have you any idea, Harry, where they're based?
UK, I think. I mean, the names that I've seen are recognisable. So it's not completely new in terms of new people. It's people that I've shared before. But I've got caught in the hope here, but I think it's UK. A comment shared explaining, I think the problem in getting organisations to have training based on lived experience of neurodivergent people. Yeah, I agree with that. It's to get that kind of step forward and how to do it and how to be as inclusive as possible, I think. See, thinking about it, I think this may be Ireland. Some of the names have come up. I think this is Irish. Manna McGuinness is a name that rings a bell. Yes, where it's from, who's involved is Amanda McGuinness from Ireland, and I've shared a few things from Amanda through the Little Puddings kind of blog, the Little Puddings blog. So it's connected to that. The next post is from Transforming Autism, which is a non-profit organisation redefining autism and changing lives. And what they've announced is a new collaboration. And they say that they will be collaborating with Autism Navigator LLC, a Florida-based organisation that bridges the gap between science and community practice through its interactive and web platforms. Designed for families and professionals, Autism Navigator and its companion Baby Navigator integrate current research with extensive video footage illustrating early developmental milestones and diagnostic features of autism and effective evidence-based intervention strategies. Their research-informed training and services offer early years solutions to young autistic children and their families and professionals in working with autistic children. Their programs, backed by RCTs and impact analysis, focus, as we do in early years, with their Baby Navigator program, helping families get started really early. Our collaboration objectives include 2. Reach more families of young autistic children in need of support across the world. Increase the profile of early years and support available to families. raise the profile of evidence and impact intervention during the early years, shift the narrative of autism to early years, mutually support each organisation in these objectives. The Chief Executive Officer, Tracy Pepper, said, both organisations share a strong and focused attention on early years support for young autistic children and their families. By working together, we can extend our reach and presence, as well as parents benefiting from the experience and programmes Autism Navigator provide. What's people's thoughts? Based in the US.
There's a link there. autismnavigator.com, and if you follow the link, you will see autism described in quite old-fashioned terms. The link to autismnavigator.org, the charity part, doesn't work. The team are people from medical backgrounds, much from the same group of people at Florida State University. They describe autism as autism spectrum disorder, a neurodevelopmental disorder defined by persistent deficits in social communication and social interaction, accompanied by restricted, repetitive patterns of behaviour, interests, or activities. It's considered a lifelong diagnosis, and it says that with appropriate early intervention, individuals with autism spectrum disorder can lead productive, inclusive and fulfilling lives. Many children with ASD do well in school, participate in activities they enjoy, go to college and are employed in adulthood. For most parents and professionals, ASD can be a very puzzling and complex disorder. Though a great deal of its mystery has yet to be uncovered, we know much more about it than we did 10 years ago. Just as our understanding has evolved over the years, so has the way we define, diagnose and treat ASD. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. It's It's interesting. We have a comment, a question from Teresa Goodwin McVean. Hello, I'm a very late diagnosed woman in Canada and I found your group especially resonant. Thank you for that. Do you know of any groups in Canada or whether I can participate in any of the programmes in Scotland virtually?
Wow, I would say just join in. If you wish to comment on Harry's Facebook page now, and you can put Harry's Facebook page up, I can send you a link right now for you to join the conversation.
Going back to the post, I mean, we've had discussions before regarding the difference between the UK and the United States in terms of where things are in terms of its outlook to autism and the way that autistic people are treated or even just looked upon in society. But there has been examples of more positive, in my opinion, more positive language that's been demonstrated just now, which is talking about autism as a deficit, it's talking about as a condition, with, a medically kind of condition that, it's a disorder. But then, in fairness, there is many people who have different opinions about their own autism. And as has been said before, that some people think that autism is their identity. Some people think it's a gift. And there's some people that feel that it is a disorder that needs to be treated in some way to help them get by in life. So I'm in a position personally where I look at it as identity. But then I went on a journey that started with the disorder and then thinking it was a sort of kind of skill and then getting to identity, and that kind of journey went over, over 20 years, in fact, 26, 27 years. So even reading that and hearing of some of the words, it does irk me, but I'm trying to be understanding of how others may feel. But it does worry me, some of the methods are still being used around the world.
Look, my suspicion is that this is an ABA-based therapeutic intervention to help children to normalise themselves, which, as we know, can be very detrimental long-term with masking and such like. This is my prejudice. When I read and look and I see how they've coached it and I see how they've couched it, and I see how they describe autism in these medical terms, it looks very much to me like a rebrand of very old-fashioned ideas made more palatable for the next generation of parents who will sign up to have their kids modified.
The next post is from Tanya Valentine. The next post is from Tanya Valentine, neuroaffirming family coach, who provides a compassionate guidance for parents of neurodivergent children and teens navigating autistic burnout. Join our parent community from burnout to balance. And they shared the following. I don't know about you, but I have noticed that when I clean my house, I tend to follow the same familiar pattern. Clean the bathroom, stack the dishwasher, vacuum the carpets. It's predictable, safe, a routine that gives me some sense of control over my world. But every now and then, the light will shift and I'll notice the things that live outside my regular checklist. Spiderwebs on the ceiling, fly spots on the walls, a mysterious ooze creeping out from under the fridge. And in that moment, I have a choice. Do I stop and deal with what's asking for my attention? Or do I pretend I didn't see it and carry on with my day? More often than not, I choose the latter, because I know it's never just one thing. Once I start looking for the hidden mess, my brain will find me more and more to do, and just thinking about it feels overwhelming. But then something happens. The kitchen floods, the fridge dies, you decide to move house. And suddenly you have to deal with the invisible things all at once. When you do, you're left wondering, with a pang of shame and maybe a little disgust, how you managed to live with it for so long. Because once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. You clean it all up, promise yourself that you'll stay on top of it next time. But more often than not, you don't. This same pattern shows up in other parts of life. Most of us live on the surface, tending to the here and now, sticking to comfortable routines, and turning a blind eye to the inconvenient truths we don't have the time or energy for. The friendship that needs repair, the health concern we keep ignoring, the parenting patterns we know are harming our children, ourselves, and our relationship with them. We tell ourselves we'll get to it later, because deep down we know it's never just the one thing. And then something like burnout happens, and it tears a hole in the fabric of our life so big that everything we've been sweeping into the shadows comes spilling all out at once. The inconvenient becomes urgent. We're left surveying the mess with a heavy mix of shame, grief, and overwhelm, knowing it will take significant, sustained work to put things right. The truth is, life, like our homes, will always gather dust. There will always be spider webs in the corners, fingerprints on the walls, and things we'd rather not face. But once we've seen them, we have a choice, to turn away or to tend with love. And maybe over time, that tending becomes less about keeping a spotless house and more about creating a place where we can live with ourselves gently. If you're standing in your own messy room right now, with things you can't unsee and don't want to face alone, I want you to know you don't have to. Reach out, share your story, let's walk through the tending together. What's people's thoughts?
My initial reaction is thinking about the matters of sensitivity, about how sensitive you are to things, and how you handle your own sensitivity. And I think the poster mentions this, like it can escalate from manageable routine to a burnout scenario, say. I was also reflecting on, how she mentioned options and choices about how to react to observable things. But my issue sometimes is like having more than one thing on my mind at once. So it's like I'm trying to do 2 or 3 things at once, which is kind of, bad discipline, But again, according to sensitivity, it's whether you feel you have to do it or not, or are you able to, do you have the capacity, the energy, And I think that's why some of us have routines and why this poster mentions a routine as a way of sustaining a sense of balance through the everyday.
If I didn't have my routine, I honestly do not know how I would keep going and how I would cope. I mean, there's things like Sundays is for real life stuff like laundry and vacuuming and gardening, but the rest of the week it's not. And if you said to me, why don't you go out on a Monday afternoon and cut the grass? It's just not going to happen. That's a Sunday afternoon job.
So is that how it is exactly for your internal life as well? The post is describing 2 situations: your practical life, where you often have mishaps and things get undone or left undone, and in your own personal life and your personal experiences and your personal relationships, things get undone and we don't address the things that possibly have left a mess. Are you saying that they can only be done in certain circumstances under certain routines?
I don't have any personal relationships, so I couldn't comment that. I honestly don't know how that would fit in. There's a friend I meet up with about every 3 months. And other than that, I don't have any personal relationships or as little interaction as possible.
I think it might extend into something that was mentioned a while ago. I think it was GR who mentioned it about shopping and the routine around shopping. You know, there may be days where you do your shopping or a time of day. There may be only certain things you want to buy, and if that isn't in place, then it's upsetting. So, and I can understand where that comes from. I don't really do that myself, but I come from a family where they did allocate days for certain activities, and that was rigorously upheld.
Yeah, I mean, my mother had quite a routine. I don't think she had autism. She might have had a bit of ADHD, but and the routine, I adopted that routine. And to be honest with you, if I didn't have that routine, like when she initially after she died, if I hadn't had the meal routine that she had in place, I wouldn't have eaten.
A comment from Robbie. I hate routine. As long as I know what I'm doing, that is all that matters. And also says the mess gets sorted out when I'm forced to. For example, when I have visitors. And that second one is something I sort of kind of correspond to, the kind of housework thing, because I live alone, so I'm quite kind of laid back about it. House is not a mess, but it could be, it's not, you know, the housework thing isn't a regular thing as probably as it so-called should be. And the only time that I sort of kind of get into that mode is when I'm going to have a visitor, which I don't have that many, in fairness. It's usually me going out visiting other people. But as I've said before, I have a friend that comes up sometimes and stays for the weekend, and I tidy all up for him coming up. But it seems that certain things, certain routines that you're supposed to do and advised to do, it just seems like an intense thing to do. Like, you should clean your windows, you should dust every so often, you should change this, you should change that, you should. The strange things about in other people's houses, I don't know how other people are like here, in terms of decorating. People like not the people don't like decorate, but they feel the need to sort of revamp their house every now and again with new wallpaper or paint or whatever, or even changing things in the house. But I try and keep things the same for as long as possible. So I don't know if that's relevant to the actual post, but what it clicked with me is about being comfortable within and just taking time. And sometimes things you do ignore, like there has been certain aspects that I have ignored, like one of my windows wouldn't open, and I just wasn't that keen on someone coming into the house to fix it because I live in a council property. Then I felt silly for not doing it because it's not like a bad thing. It's just like, it's just getting something resolved. So that's my take on it.
There's a lot in this post when you think about it, like the way we've been thinking about it. As I put in the text there, that I was thinking about the difference between being house proud and being at home. I mean, you can sit and be at home in your own, not mess, but your own contentment to a certain extent, your own energy level, you know, for interaction with your surroundings. But then there are others whose impulse and intention and direction and purpose is to be house proud, to maintain a certain order. And order's a big word too, because a lot of these routines, like timetables and schedules and even meal times, the way we mark out our days, this happens now, this happens later, you know. In a sense, they aren't real. They're created timetables in order to create order. And usually that order's imposed externally, say, or through society. And one can resist that, or feel a resistance towards it, and feel like one is not coping very well if one is not adhering to it. And that can lead to a sensitivity and a crisis, say that the way I want to be is incorrect somehow. Not me personally, but I'm thinking about the person who may be struggling with those routines and accommodations.
This is a really interesting angle you're taking, Raymond. It's a trade-off, and it's a tough one. I have to make some things happen within a certain framework of time. You know, there are timetables for when it's possible to have parcels picked up, or when it's possible to speak to somebody. But I try to make sure that there are as few of those things in my life as possible, and I don't try to construct any more ones to add in. And I know a lot of autistic people do. They design it so that they have to eat at 1 o'clock p.m. or they have to eat a certain breakfast at a certain time. I feel much more comfortable if I have enough flexibility to do what I feel comfortable doing during a day. So instead of doing the task maybe that you could timetable that needs doing, do the task that feels it will be most efficiently and happily done, and feels less like work, feels less stressy. And as long as you eventually get into the right mood to deal with the ones that you avoid for a while, I see that as quite a comfortable way of living. I'm wondering if this neurodivergent professional, because they are neurodivergent, feels that they can take some of this blame, guilt, shame that we seem to accumulate as autistic people in not fitting general frameworks that are put out there in society for us, and the residual of not fitting for decades.
I was thinking about this the other day when it was like 6 o'clock, and I thought, okay, 6 o'clock, that's tea time, it's time to cook and eat. And I thought, I don't actually feel hungry. So why am I forcing myself to eat at this time? And it made me reflect on other things that were a bit like that. You know how we are, we can go off on these explorations. But yeah, it was just that thing around food. And I began to notice a lot of other things were a bit like that. Even sleep to a certain extent.
Yeah, that worries me when you associate these things with food, because if we don't have some kind of adaptation to a routine about food, we lose weight, we get ourselves into eating disorders of different kinds. So it's almost, that's the one I think that we have to kind of force ourselves to eat and keep a little bit of a routine in there, because we've got a human body to keep working with the right protein going in at the right times after exercise and the right energy levels.
Something that Robbie's also shared in the comments. As long as I know where things are, that's all that matters. And I can respond, correspond with that. It's like the comfort of where things are in your home, where they are, and the comfort of putting things in a certain place and it's set out in a certain way. Like I sit in the same seat every Sunday night doing autistic radio. This is where I sit, this is what I look forward to, and that is part of our routine on a Sunday evening. Although there's other times where routine is, I'm a bit with routine, it's because I'm in my home, it's like, it's away from all the hustle and bustle, it's like, I can let go a little bit, or totally, depending on my mood. But when I'm outside, it's like the routine is crucial and important and important part of functioning. But in the home, it's a bit more relaxed and things are put in a certain way. Not totally, but it's more relaxed.
I had my tickle stick out the other day, reaching up to remove the cobwebs and the spider trails around the ceiling and corners, and I felt really grateful to these spiders, for looking after my home for me, keeping certain biting bugs away. And I like to watch them sometimes, like what they get up to, these spiders. But yeah, I had to dust it eventually because it was getting a bit strange looking. It was a bit, I always think of what's that woman in the Charles Dickens thing, Lady Haversham, how she had almost become like the dust in her room, how you can sort of merge with your home after a while. So the cobwebs were beginning to make me think like that.
The next post is from the autistic teacher, who's a public figure, autistic and proud, sharing insight and understanding to help the autistic community based in the UK. And they shared the following. I am autistic. I think about things deeply. I worry about others' thoughts. I love to learn about other places. I feel anxious in unfamiliar surroundings. I care about justice. I can feel vulnerable. I am passionate about people knowing that they have value. Sometimes I forget myself. I want to fit in. I often feel like an outsider. I try to inspire, empower, and look for the positives. I hope for better times. I am autistic. Most people's thoughts.
Well, right away I'm drawn to the line, what is it, I worry about other people's thoughts. Because sometimes I'll think that too, and then I'll realise I don't even know what other people are thinking. I know what I'm thinking, and that's what I'm worrying about, is what I'm thinking. I think are other people's thoughts, if you follow that. And the other one that really struck me was sometimes I forget myself. There's a bit of me that sees that as a positive trait. And I just wonder what it means by that, or they mean.
I don't know about others, but what I tend to do, when culpable enough of course, is I give advice for others, like tips or, support messages for how people, to cope with certain things, to deal with certain things, like a listening ear and giving just bits of information, like telling someone not to worry. There's ways you can deal with things, etc. And to, just things like that, nothing brutal. But I don't follow my own advice. I do the opposite of what I say to other people. Like, I do worry, I do overthink, I do over prepare for things that may not happen. That sort of thing. I feel bad when I shouldn't feel bad, when I tell others that they shouldn't do that. I say to people, I don't tell anybody anything. What I do is I advise, and I kind of say, try not dwell, and then I do the exact thing. It's a strange thing just thinking about it. But looking at the post, it basically, I feel it describes myself. About thinking deeply and worrying about other people's thoughts. They love to learn about other places, but then feel kind of restricted because of my own sort of, I suppose, my own worries. And the thing that kind of struck out to me is I care about justice. And the one that also says I try to inspire, empower, and look at the positives. And that is something I always look to do. This justice thing, this sort of trying to be an inspiration for people. Because as we all know, that there's people out there that look for inspiration. Because I know that I did at one time. And it doesn't have to be someone statistic that gives you the inspiration. It could be sitting and listening to someone that says something simple, or do something simple, and you go, I like that, and it just gives you this positive feeling. And this looking for the positives, always look to do that, because things are so negative and things are so cynical quite a lot of the time. As we know, it's just good to look for positives and progress. I mean, that's a word I use quite a lot, is progress and progressive and positive when we're talking about things in autistic radio and another thing. So it does really connect with me, this post.
Yeah, it's a bit of a manifesto, isn't it? It would be nice to feel that we aligned with all of those things here at Autistic Radio that the autistic teacher has put out there. Within those positives, it does recognise that we want to be part of a community, but we also feel excluded as well. But it looks at the identity of being autistic in a positive framework. And it reminds me when somebody earlier in the comments said, how do I get involved with this? My thought is that you can get involved with this anywhere in the world as long as you can deal with the time frame that we are here at 5:55 on a Sunday, and we're here every Sunday at 5:55, so you can contribute one week and not another. Because that's what we want to do here, isn't it, Harry? We want to take what that post is expressing and make it happen here online.
Yeah, I totally agree. And maybe that's why it's connecting so much as well. And the journey that we've been on and what we've done so far, because I'm obviously living it myself, it's been positive, it's been inspirational. It can get deep, but that's what it's all about. But it feels inclusive. It feels a safe space to talk what we're talking about, because it can get quite intense with some of the posts. A lot are good and some maybe well intentioned, it can be quite, dark at times, quite stark. So what I like about what we're doing and what the experience I've had with people being involved is that we're inclusive as possible. It's not for everyone. I'm not going to say it's the be all and end all, but it's certainly a positive thing for people to get involved in if they want to. And we've had people from all over the world get involved, and some have stayed longer than others. And it shows that we're in the right direction.
No, I relate a lot to post. I often get overwhelmed when I see injustice, and I probably think too much about what people might be thinking.
Do we think then that one of the core things is that autistic people want to be part of a community? Because I think I hear that in what everybody's saying and in this post. But there's a thing that strikes me about wanting to be a part of a community. It's almost an undefined thing. There's no target community you can really aim for, although sometimes that's what we do. If you're talking about autistic radio as an experience of a community to be a part of, it'd be very difficult to really define it, what that space is. It's kind of open. That's my experience. It may for other people be fulfilling certain desires they have or intentions or things they want, definable things. But for me, I've never known what I want or where it is. So in the sense of a community to aim for or to be a part of, that's difficult to know.
No, I know where you're coming from there. I don't think I particularly feel the need to find a larger autistic group, to go to autistic events, to make that a thing. I'm already surrounded by autistic people in my life, but the only way I do reach out in a communal way is through Autistic Radio and through talking and doing the things that we do. Everybody wants some kind of contact with other human beings, even if we as autistic people require it less and require it in different ways, perhaps require it under our own control rather than other people's control, which doesn't fit with a lot of people's need to have friendships. So I think there can be a big mismatch between the amount we want to have community with the whole of the rest of the world community, and our ability to make that happen. But specific autism and autistic community you are already in that community if you identify as autistic. If you've realised you're autistic, that is how you are grouped. So you're going to find people amongst that group of people, that community, as you say, that version of community that fit you, get you, understand you, inspire you, infuriate you, of course, and there's going to be an empathy, a way of a need that's a bit stronger than the human thing, because it's meeting people who are like yourself and who have similar experiences to yourself. So yeah, to me, it's a big complicated balance that everyone has to have for their own selves, because the opposite thing to community is autonomy.
Or is it not isolation? I love the way you put the word infuriate in there, because I have to remind myself that, community is not always 100%, positive. It has its trials and tribulations.
Well, look, I'm an independent late identified guy who has got on perfectly well with his life, but looks then to say, is there a community out there that I really want to join? Is there an established autism scene that I really want to join? And the answer is no, I don't. It's not attractive to me. Conventional life is more attractive to me. But what those scenes give people is some of the things I get from other places. So I can't decry those things. I think that fits other people's circumstances.
Comment from Teresa. Teresa's just kind of looking around, obviously, Autistic Radio for the first time. And say, I looked around at groups, and in yours, the people are most like myself. And the reason I'm raising this is because of the topic we're on just now about community and maybe sense of belonging. Maybe not, maybe just about a connection. Because it's hard to find. Because there's things that say that do something and provide something, and as individuals, as we all are, it doesn't work out for you. I mean, I've did a lot of these things myself. I went to a few things and I thought, you know, it's autistic based or whatever, and I thought, you know, this is all right. This serves a purpose for other people, but it's not for me. So I totally understand that, because it just depends on who's running it, and it doesn't come down to just professionals running it. It's like even the people that are running it as autistic, it's maybe a personality clash or whatever. You know, that can happen. It's just good to know that there's somewhere, you know, a platform that you feel that you can speak and you feel that you'll be respected. And of course, respect goes both ways.
Yeah, we have some lovely comments from Teresa there. And one of the things that strikes me there, and this person had looked around at groups and she's seeing something in what we're doing that's most like themselves. You know, finding a tiny little bit of similarity amongst what autism is in its huge dimensions, you know, it is something that I grab at. It's so diverse, this world, that you feel as though if you're not careful, your views are going to get you cancelled in some ways. That there's an orthodoxy out there that I am uncomfortable with. Orthodoxy. I'm uncomfortable with all of that. I'm almost rebellion is my default setting. And I don't want to be damaging and rebellious in the organisations that are already set up out there. They don't look as though they fit me. So doing something, and I think, you know, that's maybe why we are, as a community politically, splintered into these little cells, these little groups, these little cliques, you know. However much you try to open the doors to people, you end up in some kind of clique.
Like what Robbie says there about the important things for him are common interests.
Just looking at Teresa's comment about the pauses, I've noticed that each of you pauses to consider before you respond. The pauses as well is about not feeling pressured and having to fill in space by saying something. It's so that people feel comfortable if there is silence. Silence is okay. Because the general rule of neurotypical or whatever that may be is like if you're amongst people, there's a kind of 4-second rule or something. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like you have to say something to keep something going, because silence is bad or silence is odd, but it's not. Sometimes silence is just collecting thoughts, or sometimes silence is just being comfortable with the space that you're in. So that's what we do here when we're doing it live.
I was listening back recently to some of our broadcasts, and are the silences often edited out? Because it sounded like very speedy, pacey conversation, which was not how I remembered it.
Yeah, so when I do the podcast, of course, it's just time thing, that's all. It doesn't work when it's not live. When it's live, it works well, but when you're creating a podcast and you're creating like a 50-minute podcast down from a 90-minute sort of live recording, it's just one of the quirks and one of the things that are cut down. I think it even happens automatic.
I think silence might be a new art form, a new genre. I mean, of course we resist it because it just seems like it wouldn't work at all, but I think we should push it.
Yeah, the modern world will kick back at that. If there's more than a 3-second gap, some of the podcast players stop the recording or stop the playback because they think there's something wrong with it.
Wow, that's a real insight in the consumer society, isn't it? Dictating how we behave.
There's a real difference between us making these live conversations and then what Harry edits from them. It's relaxing enough to not be worried that there's a live audience, and if we are waiting and thinking before we're speaking, it means we're listening to what's just been said by the person. So we're working a much more cohesive theme, something that works much more cooperatively forward. Whereas almost all of the other forums we come across are combative. There's much. What we're trying for is cooperation, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a productive unproductivity, if you know what I mean. Is that a word even? Being productive by being unproductive. It's deemed unproductive to not say anything and to be silent, and yet it could be very productive because people are going through an experience.
I stutter, but in an organisation, in a situation where I know that a gap is fine, it's going to be taken out in the edit. If I say something, I can re-say it in a better way, and only the better thing comes through. And having those stabilizers on me, knowing that that's what we're going to do, means that I can be more fluid. It's that security of the process. I find having this microphone here and talking with you guys about subjects enabling. The microphone here gives me a voice.
The next post is from Autism Support Community, who's a blogger. Late diagnosed autistic, ADHD, 2 sons, writer, blogger, public talks, autism, mental health, bullying. And he says, diagnosis and discovering our neurology. This is my personal perspective, opinion, and may or may not resonate. Brian. And what Brian has shared is the following. People say a diagnosis is just a piece of paper. It is a life, and can in some cases can gain access to limited support and help. Diagnosis can unlock many hidden surprises, or even wisdom that allows for personal growth. Diagnosis can empower greatest self-awareness and self-acceptance. In my own case, my late diagnosis gave me the tools to see that my own father and grandfather were on the spectrum. Diagnosis empowered me to write my autobiography and finally unlock my past. Few people will have the experience, after 50 years, of meeting their true self for the very first time. What's people's thoughts?
I think regular listeners are going to be able to predict what I'm about to say, and I would say that diagnosis is not where we feel it should be. It's about identification. Now, that can be identification from the outside through the medical process, identification through a family member, or identification as self-identification. I think that is the big splitting issue in the neurodiversity movement. It's perfectly valid here at Autistic Radio to self-diagnose, and I think we all feel that that's important. I haven't heard anybody say the opposite.
I think many who are late diagnosed were self-diagnosing before they had their diagnosis, as it were. The first line is just a piece of paper. There was a moment when I got mine where I thought, oh, I've qualified. I passed an exam and I got the paperwork. But I'd already been thinking that way, and of course you then meet a community, as it were. But it's quite possible I might have met that community anyway. But it does propel certain things in your life.
In the chat, Teresa shared something that I think is quite on the nose. After thinking this over for a year following my diagnosis, I think diagnosis is like getting my model number so that I can finally read and perhaps use the correct operating manual. I agree with that. I was thinking along the lines of having a story that you have of yourself, like when it's a story that is closer to the truth, it just feels like more empowering, more connected to the reality around you and like your own lived experience. And for me, like getting the autism identified, it gave me like a much more empowering story than the one of before that was just like, I was kind of controlled by these strange forces, and I just thought I was maybe a bit mad and had felt like that kind of all my life and had been kind of spoken about like that. But I don't feel like that anymore. I don't have that sort of pathologizing, stigmatizing story anymore. I think of myself as quite a lucid person and somebody like quite committed to trying to see things as clearly as I can. And I don't think that's a mad trait.
I just love that. I just love that. I am in awe of you so often, Nicola, because at your age you know things I never knew.
I think I'm probably older than, like, 42 is a good age, is it not? It's not like it's not a spring chicken, and kind of like learned by just being really, really stupid and making all the mistakes.
I don't think I would have had the. We're talking 20 years difference almost. You know, I don't think I would have had the language to have been able to describe it in the way that you describe it. I think it's. I just want to compliment the eloquence of it, and that I tried to remember the things that you said.
Thanks, Jules.
The conversations that we have just shows how quickly things change in terms of language perception, and of course who gets diagnosed or who identifies themselves, because each individual who experiences this, whether it's diagnosis or self-diagnosis or identification, will have a different input to how they explain it or how they see it. And it's amazing that how individual, it's amazing but not amazing. What I mean is how different each person's perspective about the same sort of thing is so different that it creates new words, new descriptions, which is generally inspiring.
I just wanted to chime in with just a random aside. It just made me laugh inside my head, so I'll just share it. Like, but when Jules, when you said that you have like 20 years on me, I just heard this little voice in my head go, "Onk." It's what like the kids are saying if somebody's old, like uncle. I just thought it was quite funny, and I thought you might appreciate it. Onk.
Oh God, that kind of, I think that's a kind of corruption from the cultures that where a young man has everybody is his uncle, like in India or in Pakistan, everybody is an uncle or everyone's an auntie because the extended family gets in your face. But not only that, people who aren't even say, yeah, onk, yeah, old man interfering kind of thing.
You're an elder. We should be proud to be elders. It's connected to what I was just thinking there about generational shifts and the whole understanding of, say, a self-diagnosis or identification. I felt I was on the cusp, generation-wise, of people who I don't think I would have even had the guts to identify as something, but I was self-diagnosing because I had some kind of trauma, so what was my trauma about? And so a lifetime of like being very happy to be unproductive and non-working, non-contributing, and into fantasy, into other worlds, made me realize that could easily be seen as mad, but it wasn't. And so, but my generation, I think, could only see it in a certain way. So on that cusp, I now see how this generation after me has another language, like we were talking about earlier, this language in which to describe things. So, and now Nicola's mentioning what the kids are saying and the way they now use language. It's a beautiful thing.
And Robbie in the chat, I was late diagnosed. For a short while, it got me some more support. My diagnosis also confirmed that I was not broken. I found better support online than offered by social care. To which somebody
I was diagnosed at
true.
Sorry, I was diagnosed at 53, and I just thought, well, that makes sense of everything. But going onwards, I just thought, well, I'm just still the same person. So I go on. And when you say, I know I use this quote all the time, but the quote from Extraordinary Attorney Wu, which is, our lives may seem eccentric and weird, but they have meaning and value.
I hope they have another series of that. I really had great fun with that. I like the whale visuals.
I think season 2 supposed to, there's a preliminary report, it'll be 2027, but because it was the highest rated Korean TV series of all time or something, but probably 2027.
That makes me laugh so much. It's an autistic radio group. Somebody asked an extremely obscure question, and immediately there's an answer to it. Like there's a, Google the autistic group.
Who is it that's saying someone has no value?
No, it's within the program of looking at prejudices. Obviously, when you talk about young people speak, obviously the culture is very different because it's South Korean.
To answer that question quite darkly, all the way around the world, autistic children, particularly those who are, let's use the label profoundly autistic, are seen as of less value. Infanticide happens, and there's a whole social stigma about disability and mental disability as it's seen.
Yeah, just to lighten things up, when you say something and then someone's got a lot of knowledge about it. I was telling a friend about someone said something online, and I looked at him and I said, and you know what I'm like? It's like, get your seatbelt on and buckle up, because it's going to be a long and bumpy ride, because I just knew everything that, about that particular subject. So, but we've got, a lot of us have got special interests, and if those special interests, for the outside world, sometimes that can be useful. I've always said, if I didn't spend all my time with films, TV and music when I was at school, if I'd applied that knowledge to physics and maths, we'd have unlimited free energy, and we'd have flying cars by now.
There's an odd thing about knowing a lot, though. I used to do it a lot when I was young. I prided myself on knowing things. Memories. I had a great memory. And then I realised it got me bothered. And so I repressed it. And began to see it as a negative. You can know too much. My brain still wants to know everything, but it doesn't see it as my goal anymore. But I can see it in a lot of people that knowing is very important for them. It's almost I can't say these things, can I? It's like a spin. It's a means of regulation, a balancing factor.
Yeah, something I've shared before. My first day at school, my mother taught me to read. And my first day at school, they gave me a Janet and John book, and I sat there and I read right through it. All the rest of the class had started school before me. They were on book 2. So I read this book in a couple of minutes, and I went up to the teacher and I said, I've read this. And she said, really? So she made me stand in front of the class and read the book out loud. And I got to one particular word and I got stuck on it a bit. And she just really humiliated me for it. And after that, I felt that don't try and be ahead of everyone else. Don't try too hard, because it just gets you humiliation. That was the lesson I learned on my first day at school.
Final words, trauma and survival.
Well, thanks everyone. That was a great conversation. We're coming to the end of the broadcast. A lot of things covered, a lot of things discussed. So thank you for everyone involved. Thanks for everyone joining in. And thanks to all the people that have shared the posts that we've been talking about tonight. It's been really interesting. So this is Harry's Facebook for Sunday, the 10th of August 2025, which is part of Spectrum Voices Conversation, which is on Autistic Radio, 5:55 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. UK time every Sunday. And I look forward to doing the same next week. So thank you for listening. And I'll now hand over to Jules.
Thank you, Harry. As always, so many interesting posts, and also so many diverse conversations with different voices from us here at the team. Before I move to the open meeting, I just want to make an open invitation here to those listening at the moment that if you contact news@autisticradio.com, I'll send you some information about how to take part in what we do here. There's no it's a drop-in kind of thing, so we're not going to put any pressure on anybody. The open meeting for Autistic Radio is where we let you know about what Autistic Association, the wholly autistic charity that we formed ourselves to support the work of Autistic Radio. And this week, ... for the edit.